Welcome students to lesson 18 of the natural hazards topic. In this lesson we return to the UK and we explore the extreme weather that the UK experiences every year so that you all understand that hazards do in fact affect the UK. We'll build on our introduction of hazards in the UK to show you a case study of a real example that happened a few years ago of extreme weather. And from there we will progress to climate change, where we will complete the natural hazards topic. Please take a moment to write the date, title and learning objective. Have a pen and paper ready to learn. Time to review prior learning. Write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory and then mark your answers. Game time. So 1. At a constructive plate boundary, plates move apart. 2. Saffir-Simpson. 3. 4. 5 billion. 5. Coriolis. 6. Purrock. 7. George Washington. 8. Subduction. 9. Low air pressure. 10. Base isolation. Give yourselves a mark out of 12 because number 3 is worth 3 marks. If you got 10 or more, superb. If you lost more marks than that, complete this again in a week's time. To introduce this lesson, I'm going to show you some photos and ask you some questions about them. Use your understanding to answer the questions. You may do so in your head, but I would strongly recommend you write this down, and then we'll discuss the answers, wherein I would like you to mark your answers to see how much you've understood this. Here are the pictures. These pictures are all examples of extreme weather. So, what do you think it is? Then choose a photo and list as many problems as you can think of. And finally, how do you think climate change could explain this and this? So number 1, extreme weather. You may have tapped into the word extreme and thought that it's something that's unusual or abnormal. You may also have looked at this and this and this and this and thought that it might be harmful in some way to people. If you did write those 2 ideas, then you'd be correct. 2, depends on which photo you chose, but I'll give you some ideas. You may have said that this heat wave here might cause heat stroke or dehydration. It might cause railways to buckle, meaning transport's more difficult. This one, a snowstorm, might make, again, transport more difficult. It might cause hypothermia, people being too cold. Icy roads might, again, cause accidents on the road. This flooding, due to heavy rainfall, may block off bridges, as you see here, may block roads, preventing people from getting to school or work. May also cause people to drown. May flood farmland, leading to a loss of income and food. And here, heavy rain again. How could a warmer climate explain more frequent flooding? Well, if you already understand the impact of climate change on flooding, you may have said the following 2 things. You may have said, first of all, that it might cause more precipitation, which is rainfall in certain areas, leading to a higher risk of flooding. You may also have said that a warmer climate causes water to expand. As warmer water expands, flooding risk goes up because the water will rise. You may also have said that a warmer climate will lead to melting of ice in, for example, Antarctica, leading to rising sea levels, again increasing the risk of flooding. These ideas of these photos are what this topic of extreme weather is all about. So in this lesson you're going to understand the answers to 2 important questions. First one is, what is extreme weather? And the second one is, what examples of extreme weather do we have in the UK and why is that important? Let's go. So the key phrase. Write the definition and the key phrase, please. Little test. See if you can answer these questions with a yes or a no. So a few hours of light drizzle, you should have said no, because it's not abnormal and it's probably not going to cause any harm. 2. Again, no, because cold winter's day is typical. 3. Yes, it is. Record heavy snow, that's unusual. It's so heavy that it's unusual. 4. No temperature records broken. So again, it's not unusual. So you might be beginning to see that for extreme weather to be considered extreme, it has to be close to a record being broken. And 5, yes it is as well. Unusually hot weather causes harm. Give yourselves a mark out of 5. If you got them all right, fantastic. So let's start with this idea. Here's a climate graph which shows the average rainfall and temperature throughout the year in a place. This one is of Manitoba, which is a city in central Canada. And this one is of London, the capital of the United Kingdom. Both of these cities are on the same latitude, meaning that both are as far from the equator as each other. And so consequently, the difference in their climates has nothing to do with the angle of the sun. Look carefully. Look at the temperature range in Manitoba. It goes down to -15 or even colder in winter and up to more than 20 in the summer. By contrast, London goes barely below -5 in the winter and it averages less than 20 in the summer as well. So the temperature range in London is much smaller than the temperature range in Manitoba, the difference between highest and lowest temperature. Not only that, the difference in rainfall is much smaller in London compared to Manitoba. Manitoba has big differences in the amount of rainfall between summer and winter, whereas London is very similar throughout the year. So we have to ask ourselves why, because this question relates to this important idea. Why does the UK have a mild climate? A mild climate means when there isn't a very significant change in temperature and rainfall throughout the year, and the temperatures aren't very hot or very cold. And it all has to do with this. Take these two cities, Shannon and Warsaw here. Shannon is very close to the sea. Warsaw is much further from the sea. In winter, Shannon is much warmer than Warsaw, and in summer it's not as warm. The temperature range in Shannon is much smaller than the temperature range in Warsaw because it's closer to the sea. Look at the UK here. The UK is an island, so almost all towns are close to the sea, meaning that the temperature range in almost all towns in the UK will be much smaller than the temperature range in places that are further from the sea, places within the centre of continents such as Manitoba in Canada. So why is this the case? Well, have a look at this picture here. In winter, the sea is warmer than the land because water takes longer to cool down than land. And so when wind blows over the sea towards the land, the wind warms up, as you can see here. And so that wind, when it blows over the land, it warms up the land, and consequently places that are near the coast are warmer in winter than they would be because the water has warmed up the land, kind of like sitting near a radiator. By contrast, in summer, for example the middle of July, the water is cooler than the land because water takes longer to warm up than land does. And so when the wind blows in from the sea in summer, it's cooled down by the colder water. And so when that cool air blows over the land near the coast, the land cools down. And consequently, places near the coast are cooler in summer than they would be. This effect is not found in places further from the sea. Places that are far from the sea are not warmed up like this by the sea. And places that are far from the sea are not cooled down like this by the sea in summer. And so in the winter, in places that are very far from the sea, they get much colder because the land is very cold. And in the summer, places that are very far from the sea get much warmer than places near the coast because the land gets very hot very quickly. The UK has a mild climate because everywhere is near the sea, and so it's warmed up in winter and cooled down in summer, and consequently the temperature range between summer and winter is much smaller. We call this a mild climate. Usually, the United Kingdom has a mild climate with few extremes. However, there are other forces at play that can change this. Here is the UK, and these arrows of different colours show wind blowing in from around the world. Down here is near the equator, up here is near the North Pole. This is the Atlantic Ocean, and this over here is Europe and Asia. When wind comes in from different directions, it produces different weather in the United Kingdom. For instance, When wind blows into the UK from the Arctic, from near the North Pole, that wind is freezing cold, and so the UK gets its coldest days and nights because the wind is coming in from the North Pole, from the Arctic, which is at the highest latitude, meaning the furthest from the equator, and so is the coldest. However, at other times, the wind blows into the UK from across the Atlantic Ocean. And that wind has lots of water vapor that's evaporated in it because the sun heats up the Atlantic Ocean, and some of the water evaporates and turns to water vapor and forms clouds in the sky, which blow over the UK and then cause rain. So we have our wettest days when the wind is blowing in from the southwest like this. Other days still, the wind may blow in from the south, across Europe and from Africa. This air has been superheated because it's come from the equator. It's also very dry, meaning that our hottest days happen when the wind blows in from the south, from Africa. Again, when the wind blows in from continental Europe here, or from Asia, we get two types of weather. The first type of weather is this: very cold weather in winter, because that wind has blown over the continents, and if you remember, land cools down really fast, so the wind cools down, and consequently wind that blows in from Asia and Europe in the winter is very cold, and so the UK gets very cold days. By contrast, in the summer, wind that blows in from the east is very hot, because again the land warms up very fast, so we get very hot days in summer. When the wind blows in from the east, it's always dry, because the land has no water on it to evaporate, and consequently clouds don't form, and so we get hot, dry days in summer, or cold, dry days in winter. As a result of these different forces, the wind blowing in from different areas of the world, the United Kingdom can get extreme weather. So now I'm going to show you some examples that the UK experiences so you can understand what I'm actually talking about. As you can see, I've got two videos linked here which you may wish to watch after this lesson is complete. So what are the effects of extreme weather in the UK? Why should we worry about it? Well, in September 2010, icy cold wind from the North Pole and from the east blew into the UK. It was called the Beast from the East. And this wind led to massive snowstorms, some of the heaviest snow of all time. It also led to one of the coldest days ever in the UK, reaching -23 in Scotland. This snowstorm caused severe disruption to transport. As you can see here, motorways completely blocked up, with lorries stuck. More than £2 billion of income was lost by businesses in the winter of 2010 as a result of these transport disruptions caused by the snowstorm. Additionally, children couldn't get to school, with many schools closed, and so education suffered as well. A number of people, especially elderly people, were known to have died from hypothermia, being too cold, as a result of this snowstorm. It's not only very cold weather that we get in the UK, it's also extreme heat. June 2019 was the hottest summer on record in the United Kingdom, reaching a scorching 38.9 degrees Celsius in the south of England. This heat wave had devastating effects on some parts of the country, great effects for others. Young people flocked to the sea, leading to tourist incomes rising on coastal towns, from buying ice creams, for example. But, as you can see here with this runner who's passed out from heat stroke, intense heat leads our bodies to be less able to control our internal temperature, and so we suffer from heat stroke and other illnesses. Elderly people and very young people are particularly vulnerable to this. A few years earlier, in 2003, many thousands of people are known to have died across Europe from a heat wave, particularly elderly people. So while we may enjoy heat waves, they are a source of great problems as well. Not only that, heat waves also cause railroads to buckle, meaning that trains can't travel, leading to a loss of income because trains transport goods between different companies and cities. The most common and well-known type of extreme weather in the UK is heavy rain. Rain is a very common occurrence in the United Kingdom because we are at almost 60 degrees latitude north of the equator, so we have regular low air pressure, rising air, clouds, and rain. Heavy rain is a nuisance. It causes heavy flooding as well, such as this. Just last year in 2019, a heavy storm caused much of the north of the UK to be severely flooded. The town of Sheffield had its whole town centre completely flooded, and people were forced to sleep on the floor in shopping centres overnight. But worse than that, schools were closed, roads were blocked, businesses lost incomes. In fact, between 2010 and 2020, it was the wettest decade in recorded history in the United Kingdom, which we will discover more about why in future lessons. Not only that, heavy flooding can cause this to happen. This railroad has had its whole foundation washed away by a flood, again leading to a loss of revenue. So these are just some of the effects of extreme weather in the UK. If you watch the videos after this lesson, you will understand more of them. Please answer the questions 1 to 8 using what you've learned this lesson, and then mark your answers. So number 1, extreme weather. 2, a climate graph. 3, the Arctic Circle. 4, slower. 5, warmer. 6, evaporates. 7, snowstorm and more than 100 years. And finally 8, heat wave, and it was the hottest on record. Give yourselves a mark out of 10 because 7 and 8 are worth 2 marks each. If you got 9 or more, fantastic. Right, time to really embed learning. I'm going to show you some questions. Answer them in full sentences using your understanding, and then mark your answers in green pen. Make sure that you add any corrections in green pen. So number 1, you should have this in your memory by now. Make sure that you didn't look back at your notes to answer this question. 2, so you needed to give this. There are more hotter summers in the UK now than there ever have been. There are fewer snowstorms and cold days, and there are more frequent and heavier storms. These are 3 examples of how the UK's weather is becoming more extreme. So make sure you use words like there's a higher frequency, there are fewer snowstorms, there are more frequent and heavier storms. And 3, any of these examples, any 2 of them. I would, in green pen, add all of them so that you have a complete understanding of extreme weather events in the UK. From the lesson, write 2 questions and then answer them from memory. In a week's time, test yourselves on them. Next lesson, we're going to be looking at a case study of an extreme weather event in the UK so you can understand in more detail the causes and impacts of such events. Join me then.